Hey everyone, and welcome to Straight to the Point and OBS. In this video, I'm going to talk about my initial impressions about the Menace Early Access release. If you don't know, Menace is a turn-based tactical game from the studio behind Battle Brothers. This video is not a review, just a summary of my opinions and observations so far. First of all, the gameplay loop is solid across the board. An average mission takes somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes, depending on your pace. The variety of missions, maps, enemies and equipment is pretty impressive for initial early access release. The start is relatively slow, and the game gradually ramps up over time, so you shouldn't feel overwhelmed from having too many things thrown at you all the time. One thing worth noting is that there are no saves during missions, so once you start a mission, you have to finish it before you can save again. Now, things that might need some work. Perhaps the biggest gameplay-related issue is the way suppression works. Depending on the timing, the unit that gets pinned can lose not one, but 2 turns in a row because of it. And the game is not entirely clear about it when you start playing. And this does make suppression extremely powerful, more so than you might expect. On the other hand, the other consequence of this is that you can get punished very hard if you make a mistake and let your squads get pinned and basically stun-locked. There's also a definite lack of information about how many things work and what they do, or in some cases, what exactly you need and how much of it. The game could use more tooltips, and many of the tooltips that are already there are a bit vague or incomplete. A good example of this are squad leaders having various stats, but said stats have no actual tooltips, so you can only really guess what exactly they do. Another good example are weapons not telling you how many APs you need to use them until you actually take them into a mission. There are some other UI issues as well, such as white outlines and indicators on snow terrain, which makes them barely visible. Other times, some UI elements are very small and hard to see. There are also some game mechanics that are not explained in the game at all, or very vaguely in other cases. Many of these things are, however, potentially easy to fix. The game also feels a little bit aimless early on, with no real stakes. You might feel like you are doing missions just for the sake of doing missions. The game doesn't actually give you much information about why you're doing them early on. Battle Brothers did a much better job with this. This does change later on, and you do get a sense of urgency at that stage. However, you have no way of knowing that early on if you're playing for the first time, outside of guessing or reading spoilers online. The game can also feel a bit static, with no feeling of overall passage of time, especially with the system map on the strategic layer also being very static, and this can all add to the feeling of aimlessness early on. Having said all that, I wanted to stress that the gameplay loop is very solid, and you can definitely tell the game was designed by people who already have experience with the genre and they enjoy the genre. And most things I mentioned here as potential negatives can be fixed pretty easily over the course of early access, and that's usually one of the things early access is for. However, that's going to be the end of this video, so if you enjoyed it and would like to see more straight to the point type videos or support the channel, leave a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.